again. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hernick podcast. Today we have another special guest. I know 2 podcasts in a row. Today I have my friend Noah. He's a third-year student of politics in Ottawa. And today we'll be covering a lot of ground. We'll be talking about Jewish life post-October 7th. We'll be talking about what it's like to be openly Jewish on campus. Very hot-button issue. We'll also be talking about the upcoming Canadian federal election, a very important election. And we'll also be talking about the recent report about the new anti-Palestinian racism curriculum and the government report on it. We'll be going into how bullshit it is, to be honest. And we'll also be talking about why it's a dangerous precedent, and it's especially dangerous for Jewish education and the community at large. And of course, we'll be getting into sports talk. We're talking about Leafs, Jays, the NHL trade deadline, maybe a little bit of Raptors talk. Let's get into it. So Noah, do you want to tell us about yourself?
So I'm a third-year student in political science at the University of Ottawa. I'm a really big sports fan. Some of my favorite teams include the Toronto Raptors of the NBA and the Cincinnati Bengals of the NFL. I also write my own Formula One blog, which is called Paddock Predictions. You can follow it on Instagram using that exact same bio. And let's see. And I'm really interested in travel and taking nature walks. I'm pretty big on my nature walks.
That's amazing. I love nature too. And who's your favorite Formula One driver? Since I don't have a question in there about it. I'm not a big Formula One guy. My dad's a huge. I'm afraid of the driver's name. My dad's going to probably watch this and be mad at me for getting that wrong. For not knowing the name of the driver. But who's your favorite?
I'm going to say my favorite is Carlos Sainz. When I first really got into Formula One through Drive to Survive, which is the Netflix show, season 7 of it just premiered today. And he was one of the first drivers in the first episode, and just getting to know his story and his driving skills and his background, it really resonated with me. And I feel like having that person in the sport to resonate with really helps me to be a fan and to be more engaged with the sport.
That's fascinating. Which team does he drive under? I'm forgetting the name of that driver that my dad likes. I think he's on Team Ferrari, if I'm correct.
Is that Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah. No, isn't Lewis on Team Mercedes?
Nope, Ferrari. He's just joined.
I remember. I don't follow it at all. I did not.
Don't worry about it.
So that's news to me. But let's get into a topic I know more about. Let's get into Jewish life post-October 7th. So what is it like being a Jewish student in Ottawa post-October 7th, being in a city full of politicians? What is it like? Is there a huge anti-Semitic climate? Do the Francophones bother you? Do the Anglophones bother you? Tell me all your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I will say that immediately following October 7, seeing the people I used to consider friends, not just in Ottawa, but in general, to be on the pro-Palestinian side and to be following these sentiments and these political beliefs. I will say that experiencing that as someone who is Jewish it was very revealing, to say the least. Like, to have known that this is an issue and these are sentiments that have permeated not just in the people who are explicitly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, but also into people that I myself consider my friends and have considered in some cases. And I feel like it has been very revealing for me as to, who I call my friends, who I relate myself with, what causes I identify with. And I feel like knowing that such sentiments and actions are very capable, especially following October 7th, it has really informed who I'm friends with and what sort of organizations and extracurriculars I am involved with. And I'm also going to be really honest, and I know we're going to get into politics later, but October 7th was one of the things that drove me towards being a Conservative Party member, not just because everyone on the left, was identifying with the Palestinian cause. And in all honesty, that was where I had identified politically before October 7th, but also because, I had a lot of my Jewish friends who were volunteering with the party, and a lot of the conservative politicians had condemned October 7th right after it happened. And to me, having the people that sided with me and who expressed my beliefs on Israel and the Jewish people, not just in Canada, but everywhere, it really allowed me to feel more welcome in the conservative community. And yeah.
I definitely agree with you. I definitely also lost quite a few friends post October 7th, and I've learned about how I've had to be so much more selective about who I'm friends with and who I can't be friends with. There's some people in my class who, oh, this person's so nice, and then I look at their Instagram, there's a big watermelon emoji or something like that, and then
I've
that's how
experienced
you
that.
immediately know. And
I've experienced that.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's insane, and I feel bad for everything you've had to deal with as well. And post October 7th, have you experienced or witnessed a lot of anti-Semitism on your campus, or is it more low key, a lot calmer than it is at my campus at York?
Yeah, I know what I've seen it at York. It's awful, to say the least, in terms of the anti-Semitism and the pro-Palestinian sentiments. Here at U Ottawa, while there is a lot of it, it's not like as aggressive, or it's not really the word I wanted to use, or pro-Hamas like compared to McGill and, in your case, York
Yeah,
University.
and at UFT, and I hear that TMU is pretty bad as well, but a lot of the students there tend to stay away from it. And a follow up to that, if there's any grade 12 upcoming university freshmen, students coming to watch this podcast, and they want to know which Ontario universities as a Jewish student should I go to, or which ones should I stay the hell away from, would you recommend University of Ottawa to any freshman Jewish students?
Well, I will say that the pro-Palestinian cause and the rallies, they're not as explicitly anti-Semitic as elsewhere in the province. However, there is still a very aggressive presence of those beliefs on campus. And recently, at our multiculturalism week, there were clubs, pro-Palestinian clubs, tabling, and I think if I heard correctly from a friend of mine, one of them had the map of Israel with the Palestinian flag drawn over it, and I feel, and also we had the encampments and very frequent rallies just in Ottawa in general. So I will say it's not as particularly bad as somewhere like McGill or York, U of T, TMU, but it's not as friendly to the Jewish community. When I look at Western, and I don't know if I'm perfect 100% right on this or not. I'm not that familiar with the London community, but there is a far smaller presence of those clubs and organizations on Western campus that have those overt pro-Palestinian views. I mean, that might have been a long time ago that might have been the case, but as of last year, I haven't really heard that much about Western.
Yeah, I definitely haven't either. It might be that they have a huge Jewish community there. I have a lot of my cousins went to Western or going to Western, and I hear it's a great school for Jews. And at York, I'm lucky and I'm unlucky because there's the anti-Semitism is mainly from the Students' Union. The Students' Union was the one that was behind the encampment that got torn down, as all of you know. I went there to record it when they were getting torn down to make fun of them. It was a very good day seeing the police got to thank them. I don't know if you saw that, Noah, on my Instagram. Very proud day.
I think I saw that, and
But they tore it down after one day, so I have to give school president Rhonda Lenton a big round of applause. I believe she's married to a Jew, so I know she has a connection to the community, but she's not the best. She definitely could do a lot more, but I know she has her hands tied as the union. Somar Abu Aziz, as I mentioned before.
yeah,
It's tough. It's very, very tough.
Yeah, I will comment real quickly that it's the same here with our student union. Just to say the least, our advocacy commissioner is very overtly pro-Palestinian, and she ran her campaign mainly on BDS standards and ideas, which, for those of you listening that may not be aware, is boycott, divestment, sanction, or avoiding companies and products and sanctioning them, those that support Israel or the Israeli cause or the IDF, anything related to Israel. And our student union has backed the pro-Palestinian cause, and if I remember correctly, they also backed the spring encampment that was set up on the front lawn of our campus. So my point is, it's not just York, it's other student unions too.
Well, it's good and bad to know that, good and unfortunate to know that there's other schools that have the exact same experience. Because Somar, the new president, she was actually initially the advocacy commissioner, and on her posters, as many of you know, she had an AK-47 rifle, someone holding it on her necklace, which was insane. And she had like another one with an AK-47. I shouldn't know weapons too much on YouTube, but definitely very bad people working for these unions, and we should definitely investigate them. I hope that the new Conservative government does that. And
I would 100% agree on that.
And that actually is a perfect transition to our next topic, which is the Canadian election and the anti-Palestinian racism report, fake report. So what do you think will be the biggest issues in the upcoming election? I'll let you go first.
So I think the biggest one is affordability. And look, we've seen over the past 9 years that things have just been getting more ridiculously expensive. And sure, one may point to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine as a cause. However, our Liberal government has not sufficiently dealt with it. And we see grocery prices on the rise, housing prices on the rise. Here in Ottawa, on average, it's $1,500 just to rent for a month, and down payments are around $1,000 now. We've also been seeing the price of gas go up. We've seen all the prices of goods going up, and I think that people need to be voting with their wallet in this next election.
Exactly, people should be voting with their wallet. We need to get this carbon tax removed. It's insane how much the government is taxing us, how much the government is making this inflation even worse. And it's crazy that people are willing to vote for Carney when he's the one who's been influencing Trudeau this whole time to make these even worse monetary policies, to make it even harder on the average Canadian worker, on the average Canadian citizen, to be able to buy food, gasoline, their mortgages. It's insane. And would you agree that right now with the Liberal leadership election, that the polls aren't reading this election the right way? Polls like ECOS, who have an absolute bias against the Conservatives, where I'm forgetting what what ECOS's president, what his name is, but I remember there was a very famous tweet of his where he overtly wanted to do everything he can in his capacity to prevent Pierre from becoming prime minister, which is why ECOS shouldn't be trusted. Do you agree that we shouldn't trust the polls because they aren't weighting the voter engagement properly, and they aren't realizing they should be weighing the Liberal vote a lot less, because Liberals are obviously more engaged right now because of their leadership election. And I think that the polls are definitely go up a lot more once the election is officially called in a couple days. Hopefully it'll be a couple days, and then we'll have an election beginning of April. Please, Hashem, please.
Okay, so my big rule with polls is never trust them until the vote actually happens. Because as we see here, we see polls saying that the Liberals are rebounding and that they even have a big lead. In fact, when I saw the ECOS poll today on Twitter, having the Conservatives at 108 seats and the Liberals at 200, I almost choked on my Starbucks drink. It was that unbelievable. It's funny how some of these polls are crazy.
From your purple hair barista.
yeah. And and then there's others that say the Conservatives are still maintaining the lead despite losses. In fact, I saw a post once that said that even with Carney as leader, that Pierre Poilievre would still have around a 14% lead in the polls between him and the Liberals. And so we're seeing a lot of bias and favoritism between polls, and whether that whether that correlates with what believing one party's ideas over the another, whether the person conducting the polls is of the Liberal Party or not, that is very well a part of this. But I feel like we can't trust anybody until any of these pollsters until we actually have a vote and we can see for ourselves which way the result ends up going.
Exactly. We can't trust the polls at all until the election day. I remember the first campaign I ever worked on was for Sal Sorrento in St. Catharines. Really good guy. If you guys want to search up Sal, he's a really nice guy. He taught me how to campaign, and he actually told me when I said, "Oh, the polls are looking good for you." He said, "Never trust the polls, Cooper. Never trust them." And he was right, because he was up in the polls, but he lost his election back in 2021 or 2022, and then he lost it again recently because St. Catharines Centre is a really hard district to run in. That's irrelevant for the topic, and it shows we shouldn't trust them at all. Do you think that that with this election and with Carney as the new Liberal leader, that the NDP is going to be massively affected and is going to probably might lose their party status, and it would be because of how bad the leader Jagmeet Singh has been, in my opinion.
Two things on that before I explain. One, Jagmeet Singh being a bad leader is a significantly massive understatement.
Yeah.
And two, I don't just think the Liberals are going to get beaten badly. I think they're going to get obliterated. Like, you look at the polls, and even in Jagmeet Singh's riding, I forget if it's Burnaby South, Burnaby Central, they're moving him around on the carousel.
I believe it's Burnaby Center, if I'm correct.
Yeah, they're just moving him around on the Burnaby carousel. Like, you can never rely on him actually going to run in one riding or another at this point. But I think the Liberals, the NDPs, they're going to lose a lot of seats. They're not even going to hit 20 or 15 seats. They're going to be, even giving them 10 seats is a little bit of a stretch. But I think if it's that bad, which that is what the polls are starting to suggest, it's one thing a lot of the polls actually agree on. I think if that happens, that we are going to see Jagmeet Singh resign after the next election campaign, because it is clear a few weeks ago, the NDPs were contending for opposition status with like 40, 50 seats in some polls, and now they're behind the Bloc Québécois and could continue to lose seats even.
Yeah,
it's that bad.
I don't think Jagmeet Singh will ever resign. I think he wants to be just like Elizabeth May. He wants to be a permanent seat, because the NDP is becoming increasingly a cult around leaders, just like the Green Party. One of my family members is a Green Party member, and she follows the Elizabeth May cult of conspiracy theories and climate bullshit.
Yeah, the NDPs and Greens, they're just activists.
The cult around the member from Saanich Gulf Island, if I'm correct, is she's an insane person, and
yeah.
I hope that all of the left-wing parties, all of the parties that have aided and abetted this Liberal government that's destroyed our country, I hope that they all get eliminated and destroyed. I was hoping that one of the Liberal disruptor candidates, like Ruby Dello, was going to get in, because I thought she would be a good disruptor to knock off the rust. But I think it will take way too long to knock off that rust, because they might be in opposition status or non-party status even for like 10 years after this election, because they have a lot of ground to gain, and I think it's going to be insane. Do you have any thoughts?
Just a few. The NDP and Green at this point, they're just activists, or they act like activists. And I do feel like that the Liberals, NDPs, and Greens, they are all up for rebuilds and rebrands, whatever word you want to attribute to it, because we've seen the policies that they've put in over the last 9 years, and especially with the Liberals, it's caused them to drift further to the left, close to where the NDPs are, which I think is also why you're seeing a lot of NDP voters jump to the Liberals, because of arguably a shift more to the left from the Liberals. And I feel like they need to not campaign for the fourth term, like what they're going to be putting Carney up for. I think that they're up for a rebrand, and they need to, take the next 4 years, whatever, to pull the party back to the center and to win back the trust of more center voters that have gone over to Pierre Poilievre. And that's I think what Ruby Dalla was trying to do, bring the party back to the center where it usually is.
And to change the topic, but still on politics, I see a lot in the news about the youth vote is going to go a lot more conservative, because the under 40 crowd is a lot more conservative than the over 40 crowd, and it's an interesting trend, because usually people say, oh, the younger you are, the more left wing you are, when it actually is looking from how the polls are that the older you are, the more liberal you are, because that's where your pensions are coming from, and the Liberals will protect it. That's the justification. Do you agree with that new trend with the youth conservative vote?
Wholeheartedly. And here in Ottawa, I feel like a lot of the youth I don't know if it's just a University of Ottawa thing
it might
or
be an Ottawa thing, that they're a lot more liberal.
Yeah. I do feel like a lot of youth are starting to trend towards the right. I think it is more pronounced, though, in Toronto. You see a lot of the Toronto ridings starting to shift to the Conservatives, namely my riding, Eglinton Lawrence, and Thornhill, which the Conservatives just flipped in 2021, is one of those that is looking to stay with the Conservatives. They even just flipped Toronto St. Paul's.
Thornhill didn't flip in 2021. We just got a new MP. You're referring to MP Lanceman, I believe. And she's actually my MP. I've done a little bit of work with her. Really great MP. I'm very excited for her to be our Deputy Prime Minister. And about Eglinton Lawrence, the candidate there, Karen Stitz, I believe her name is.
Karen Stintz.
Yeah, she's a really good candidate. I've sort of gotten to know her a little bit. I've been reading up on her. Seems like a great candidate, so has my endorsement, and I assume Noah's endorsement too. Because
Absolutely.
we need as big of a coalition as possible. We need a blue wave, blue tsunami. Blue tsunami, here we come!
Sounds good. I also apologize for getting the riding wrong. I think it was another riding in North Toronto I was thinking of.
You're probably thinking of York Centre, which
yeah,
is
that's the one with
which is Roman Baber's future riding. That's where Yara Sachs is, and I actually plan to at the campaign with Roman. I really liked him when he was in the Conservative leadership race, and he was actually my second place vote. I should have given him my first place vote, and then the second round I should have given to Pierre. I wanted Pierre to be number one with as big of a majority as possible.
I do feel like Roman is a. Sorry.
What were you saying? Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you.
No, you're good. I just feel like that, Roman Baber's great politician, great candidate. And I think I've been in the riding once a few weeks ago, and he's put in a lot of work, getting the name out, getting his campaign out, and I hope it shows in the next election.
I really hope it does, and I have a lot of friends who worked on Michael Kersner's campaign in the provincial election, and he won his election by a pretty good margin for the district. Usually it's a very close district. It's a very Jewish district, also a very Filipino one, and I really hope that he defeats Yara Sachs, because Yara Sachs is Trudeau's token Jew, and she deserves to go back to whatever job she had before, because she doesn't deserve to be our representative of the Jewish community in the Liberal government. We need a strong Jewish conservative in Roman Baber. Absolutely, we do. And I'm really excited to see these results from the election. Should we get into the one of your favorite topics, the APR report?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, what were your initial thoughts once you saw the report?
I personally was shocked, and if I'm not mistaken, it came out a day before the government forum on anti-Semitism was taking place just right here in Ottawa. And I'm just going to throw a statistic for our viewers real quickly, and it's that 91% of Canadian Jews feel like that they have a connection to Israel. And I'm going to get in on this right now. And basically what anti-Palestinian racism is denouncing the quote-unquote colonialism of Palestine by Israel and the Jews. And
APR is not a real thing at all. Just make sure
absolutely not.
We make it absurdly clear. APR does not exist. Anyone who tells you it exists is likely an anti-Semite, because they're just by the name they're an anti-Zionist, and most anti-Zionists are anti-Semitic. Almost all of them are. So I just want to make sure we're extremely clear on that. And
yeah,
I'll let you go on, and I'll talk about the education aspect of a bit.
Thank you. And I will say myself, to make it clear on my end, that I do not believe in this anti-Palestinian racism thing, and I don't believe in the Palestinian cause. So I'm just going to make that perfectly clear before I continue. And the definition also encompasses denying Zionism as a viewpoint, which is Zionism is basically the idea that the Jews have a right to a homeland and the right to call Israel their home. And should that be implemented, it is going to greatly impact the Jewish people in Canada. It's going to, limit their expression, and it's going to limit what can and can't be said in general about the issue. And yeah, and for Justin Trudeau to go around calling himself a Zionist while being at the forefront of a government that endorses such forums as the APR report. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that nickname for Trudeau that David Menzies of Rebel News has, where he just calls him blackface straight up.
Mm-hmm.
He'll show one face of his to the to a Jewish community, then he'll go over to a mosque and meet with the imam and wear the whole Muslim get up, and he'll pretend to get along with that community too. He's such a two-faced, spineless politician. Most politicians are like that. Hopefully Pierre isn't like that. I think that Pierre generally does care about us. But sticking on the topic of APR, I've talked to many teachers in TDSB and YRDSB who are horrified with this new curriculum of APR. Because it threatens us as a Jewish community, and it's going to make a lot of the Jewish community want to go to private schools. I, for a very long time, have said I don't like the idea of private schools. I like public education. I went in public education my entire life, and I think that this is going to change that. I think that a lot of the Jewish community now, including myself, is going to take another look at sending their kids to private schools. And I hope that we don't send our kids to the public schools. If they're going to put anti-Semitism in their curriculum, we're going the opposite way of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia recently removed the anti-Semitic curriculum from their schools, but we're putting it back in. It's like we're going back to the 30s. It's absolutely fucking insane. Excuse my language, guys. I hope there wasn't any kids that heard me swear, but it's absolutely insane. And call your MPs right now. Tell them, especially if they're a Liberal or an NDP, I want you to scream at them, especially if they're an NDP, and tell them how bad of a curriculum this is going to be, how much this is going to hurt the Jewish community. Make sure to rip a strip off them.
Absolutely. And I think that should be happening in general. And even if this does turn into policy, we're still going to see a lot of lawsuits coming from parents, from school boards, from teachers, that this is going to ostracize Canadian Jews even further than October 7th has. And if Carney gets in, there's no telling if he's going to do the same thing. Like you said about Trudeau, he's also two-faced. Like he said one thing in Alberta, and then he goes to Quebec and says another thing in French, terrible French, to Montreal.
Yeah, the terrible French, where Freeland actually had to step in and correct him when he said, "We support Hamas" in French. That was absolutely fucking hilarious. I'm not the biggest French speaker, so I wouldn't have caught that the translation mistake. But maybe for it to say like "ne pas" or something, which means no in French.
That's what Freeland basically was going on, because Carney, I mean, some people will forgive him for his French. I don't. I'm quite suspicious of Mark Carney.
I wouldn't trust someone who has so much corruption, so much baggage. I saw that the organization Stripe that he was with, they have multiple lawsuits going against them. They have a lot of baggage. I know Brookfield, who he's on the board of, has a lot of baggage, has a lot of pipelines that he supported. Pipelines that he wouldn't allow in Canada, but he allows in the UAE for his organization to fund. What an amazing hypocrite of a politician right there, guys.
Also, his alleged connections with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, I remember there was a photo of him. I think he was on top of Ghislaine Maxwell, and when I saw that, I thought, "Holy shit, we have something special. We have a real special one. He's not just Ignatieff. He's definitely something special."
Absolutely.
And what do you think about how the APR curriculum is going to set? What kind of precedent will this APR report set for government policies moving forward?
Well, I feel like this is going to go two or three ways. The first way is that, especially in the Liberals pro-Palestinian caucus, there's going to be a big push from them to introduce similar policies and legislation. There's going to be big pushback from conservatives. And I mean, we don't know how the House of Commons is going to look after the election, or even with Mark Carney in power, then that could vary as well. But I feel like that if there is enough support from the NDP, and not just the NDP, if there's support from other MPs, then Mark Carney or Justin Trudeau or whoever's leading the Liberals post-election, or even if there isn't an election, they're going to start to feel motivated to push these. And this is going to bring me into the second way, which is in education, which is going to take place in the case that APR is put in, which is not only going to anger the Jewish people in schools and universities, it's going to anger parents as well. It's going to anger teachers too. I had teachers in my schooling who were Jewish, and I knew teachers during my school career who were Jewish.
And sorry to interrupt you. In your schooling, just so you make it clear to the audience, did you go to public or private, or did you do a mix?
Public school.
Okay, good. Proceed.
And that's where the lawsuits are going to come in. These are the people that are going to be pushing these lawsuits, and it's actually one of the reasons why we might not even see APRs, that all these groups and individuals are going to be pushing lawsuits against this legislation in the courts. Federal courts, provincial courts, local courts, they're all going to get caught up in related lawsuits. And the government might also not want to risk getting bogged down in lawsuits. And then the third thing I see coming from this, and this is more of a wild card scenario, is that there's going to be a debate about school choice, which is the idea that parents have the choice whether to send their kids to public school or private school or to homeschool. And that's something that's coming up in the States with the impending abolishment of the Department of Education, is that we're going to see a debate emerge in Canada about school choice and whether there should be policies in place that protect school choice and the right for parents to decide where they send their kids to school, and the more incentive and more support for those who don't decide to send their kids to a public school. And if this APR does get passed, and we might see this with Jewish students if APR does get passed, we're going to see a lot of Jewish families and organizations start to push for school choice debates to come up and for school choice policies to emerge in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. I see it as being a new debate that's going to come up. I think it's going to be a huge topic of debate among school board meetings and in families. And I think it's just going to start with the Jewish community, but I think it's definitely going to happen with Muslim and Hindu communities, the Christian communities. I think the last ones will probably be all the atheists, because they don't really care about it too much. Because they'll just go along to get along. What do you think we can do to combat this anti-Palestinian racism doctrine?
If we're going to combat this in Canada, because the report proved that it is a problem that needs to be addressed and even considered before it becomes law, we need to, like you said, we need to be pushing our MPs to act and condemn it. We need to be pushing our governments not to push this legislation, and our school boards too. We need to, in the case of elections, we need to vote according to who stands with this and who doesn't. We need to make sure that politicians who don't support anti-Palestinian racism get in, and those who support APR don't get in. And we also need to be putting funding towards anti-Semitism education and learning about the intersection between these, not intersection, we need to learn about the conflict.
And have further Holocaust education and
Absolutely.
And teach kids about the Holocaust. Teach them about how a society dies when one group starts persecuting another group, like what happened in Germany.
Absolutely.
Should we move to a new topic into the sports talk segment?
Let's do it.
Because I feel like we've been on a very hard topic. We should give the viewers a little bit of a break from that.
That's true. And I mean, these are necessary discussions to have, but also...
They absolutely are. And I think that so far you've been an amazing guest. And everyone that's watching this right now, if you're still watching, thank you so much. And if you guys want to see Noah come on more podcasts with me, comment below that you want to see more of Noah, because it incentivizes me to bring back guests, because we'll be bringing in lots of other guests too. I plan to bring in a lot of other friends of mine. But if you like seeing Noah, make sure to write that in the comments. And let's start our sports talk segment with the NHL trade deadline. I'm not the biggest hockey fan, as most of you know. I'm a Leafs fan. I follow Leafs. I'll watch a game here and there. Who do you think was the biggest winner of this trade deadline?
I think the biggest winner was Tampa Bay. Some may look at Dallas getting Rantanen and Ottawa loading up ahead of a playoff push as some of the big winners, but I think the Tampa Bay Lightning won big by bringing back Yanni Gourde, bringing in Bjorkstrand to reinforce the defense. They did a lot in this trade deadline to reinforce their depth and to build for another playoff run. And this one looks like they're all in. You look at a lot of their core, and it's getting old, and they're going to be close to retirement. And it feels like this year and next year is going to be those years where they're going to make that big push to win another Stanley Cup for their core, and these moves reinforce that.
Definitely. The Lightning are definitely going to be in contention. Who do you think is the biggest loser of this trade deadline? Who do you think lost the most? Who do you think got screwed over in their trade or looks really bad coming out of it?
Right now, I'd say Boston. They lost Brad Marchand to Florida. It just broke hours ago. They sent Carlo to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is ironic that they would even trade with Toronto, Boston. And it feels like this is the beginning of a long rebuild for Boston. They had their years of success contending. Yeah, and it seems like Florida and Tampa are now on a collision course in the second or third round of the playoffs. They both loaded up.
Yeah, definitely Boston's looking awful. With how they did the trade deadline. Who do you think are the biggest contenders after the deadline? Who do you think has the biggest chance of making a cup or winning the cup?
I'm going to say Toronto's chances of going on a run went up. They got Scott Laughton. They got Brandon Carlo. Yes, laugh as you will.
I'm sorry. I'm a very cynical Leafs fan. I'm sorry that I'm laughing. This is the reason why I don't watch many Leafs games, because I can predict what's going to happen at the start of a season, what will happen at the end. They're going to lose in the first round because it happens every single year. But I'll let you go on with the optimism,
Yeah.
copium.
I mean, it's okay to laugh considering what the last 20, 21 years have looked like for Toronto. Yeah. And I think that this is the year that they have to go on a run, and they played like they are going to go on a run. Let's just hope, for the sake of everyone in the GTA, that they don't go up against Columbus in the first round. If you know, you know. And I think another big winner was Colorado, bringing in depth like Charlie McAvoy, big players. It seems like Colorado also wants to go on a big cup run like Tampa. And also Dallas is a big winner. Ottawa's a big winner too, with that they're in a playoff race actually for the first time in like 7 or 8 years. And they brought in Dylan Cousins, and I think it was Backlund coming from San Jose too. They brought in a lot to support their top players, and it feels like that they know that this year is the year that they have to get into the playoffs. So I just feel like those are some of the big winners.
Yeah, definitely all those teams are looking quite good at making a deep run. And I'm excited to see what will happen this postseason. Let's get into some baseball talk, because my favorite sport is baseball. I don't know if you know that. I know many of our viewers know that, because that's what I podcasted about for the longest time. And this year is looking to be bleaker than most years, after now knowing that it's the last year with my favorite player, Vladdy. And recently learning what his request was in terms of money, that he wanted $600 million. So we'll start with you. Do you think that Vladdy is worth $600 million?
Close to it, if not $600 million. I mean, you could bring his consistency into play, but I think he has been one of, if not the top contributor for this Blue Jays team. And for somebody who has put so much towards the team in terms of production for his team, to not pay him that money is ridiculous. I am sure that the Atkins and the Shapiros of the Jays...
Jackins.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I've written extensive articles about why the two of them suck back when I was into sports journalism. I think that they've absolutely destroyed this team, and I think that we're looking for a very, very deep rebuild ahead. I saw something on Instagram not too long ago saying that the most depressing team to be a fan of, one of the top 5 most depressing teams, is the Blue Jays. I thought, no, at first, and I realized, yeah, that's kind of accurate right there. It is definitely a depressing team to be a fan of. And how do you think that the AL East will end up looking by the end of the season?
I think the Jays, they're going to finish above Tampa Bay for sure in the division. Tampa Bay is just on a... Yeah, they're just going to be... Tampa Bay is on a slow decline, and it feels like, especially since they're not playing in Tropicana this year because of the hurricane that hit the stadium.
I think that home field advantage will definitely be a big factor for the Rays.
Yeah.
Playing in the Yankees spring training facility, it's going to be insane how many games are going to get rained out, because it rains a fucking lot in Tampa, and I hope they get to play a lot of their games. I thought that a better idea would be for them to split the stadium in Miami with the Marlins, because they have a beautiful stadium. I've never been there, but I hear that the air conditioning system is so good you probably host hockey in there. Yeah.
And so I just think they're not going to do well at home, and that's going to have a big impact on their record. But my question is, if not only the Jays can get into that wild card race, but like, can they get ahead of the likes of Boston, Baltimore, New York? We've seen I'm sure there's news sources out there that say that the Jays are going to be top of the division, near the top. I've seen a few personally that suggest that, but with Boston loading up with Bregman, with the Yankees keeping a lot of their core and bringing in Max Fried, Baltimore getting more experience, it feels like it's going to be tough to put Toronto anywhere in that top 3 in the division. But the question is the Jays, knowing that this is the last season with Vladdy, are they going to go all in, do the best that they can and get in that wild card race.
I think if the Blue Jays can get off to a good start, I think that they definitely have a very good chance of third place. I think best case scenario, the division will end up being Yankees first, Boston second, you'll have the Jays number 3, and then you'll have Baltimore in 4th. Because I think Baltimore, they've been quite inexperienced. They've had a really shaky time in the playoffs where they've lost in all their first division matchups, first round matchups. As a divisional round. And I think the Blue Jays probably sneak into that third spot, and the Braves, I think, will be that odd man out in 5th place.
Yeah.
It's always the hardest division in baseball. Because a lot of really good teams that always spend money. I think it will end up being really tough. And who do you think will be the Blue Jays' breakout player of the season?
And not necessarily breakout. I think that Bo Bichette is going to have a resurgence, especially if Vladdy leaves. If Vladdy leaves, he's basically the next man up. And
even though I think he wants to go as well, unless he doesn't do well and he wants to sign a prove-it deal for next year.
That's also possible, but if in that case he does, he needs to prove that he's the next one up. He's going to lead the team with Vladdy gone, and Alejandro Kirk's having a good spring training. I feel like we're going to see a lot of him this year.
I don't trust Kirk very much, if I'm being honest. I'm not a Kirk fan at all. I was very sad when they traded Danny, because I always loved Danny for his defense, and he turned out being a really good hitter. And I think that they might want to look at trading Bo if the season doesn't end up doing too well, because I really like how Arjun Amalia is looking. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Arjun Amalia. He's looking really good. Really, really high-ranked shortstop prospect, with the first player of Indian descent, I believe, to be in the MLB, to be drafted in the first round. I think that they have some really interesting shortstops in the wings, and with the Jays going almost the entire season without Bo, because he was injured so much, I think that they have a lot of middle infield depth, especially with the addition of Andres Jimenez. I think he could definitely be a good piece in there to make the infield even better. And with Ernie Clement probably being your third baseman, the infield's looking pretty good, especially with Arjun.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I always like Bo, and there's a lot of people who are huge fans of him because of his hair, but he cut his hair. That's not the attractive part about him. I have some family friends who like him just because of the hair. But I feel bad because he had a lot of really good potential, and last year kind of screwed it up. And I hope he has a breakout season. I'm proved wrong. But maybe they'll trade him if he has a really good year, just to have as much value as possible. Maybe trade him along with Springer to get rid of Springer's contract and get yourself some really good MLB-ready talent, a really good top prospect for Bo and Springer. And probably have to get a filler contract for him because the payroll's looking quite bleak. What are your thoughts about George Springer?
Yeah, he had that like 1 or 2 good years, and then he just hasn't performed that well. And he's got to live up to the contract we gave him. That's a given.
Yeah, everyone on my channel is used to me being the biggest Springer hype beast, and guys, I have to say, he ain't. He's washed, and I think the same thing will probably happen to Alex Bregman in Boston, because they're both looking to end up the same way, and I think Boston will end up screwing up big time. A big deal. And one of the big highlights, I think, will be for the Blue Jays this season is the rotation. The rotation's looking amazing. I think that one of the biggest X factors for the Blue Jays, besides Bo, but in the rotation, the X factors would be Max Scherzer. The 40-year-old heterochromatic legend, Max Scherzer, I think his spring training is looking really good, but 40 years old, you never know. What are your thoughts about who's the biggest X factor, and if you trust Max Scherzer?
I absolutely trust Max Scherzer. He's got that experience from the Mets, his World Series run in Washington. He's the kind of experience the bullpen needs. And
you mean rotation?
Yeah.
Or do you think he'll be in the bullpen?
I think he's going to move around a lot. They're going to evaluate him, see where he's going to be for the season, and I think he has a good chance at cracking the starting rotation, considering how his experience and how good he's looked so far in spring training. And if he can crack that rotation, the Jays pitching staff is going to get really good.
Yeah, I think the Blue Jays might have the best pitching staff in the league, except for the Dodgers. I think that's probably number 1 rotation. That one's just full of aces, but next to that is the Blue Jays rotation. I think that a really underrated starter, I don't know if I should call him underrated anymore, but someone who I really like as a pitcher is Bowden Francis. I was actually there in the stadium when he threw that almost no-hitter, and he is legit. dude throwing 98. He has really good control. I believe in that dude. I think that Jose Barrios will, of course, be really good. Kevin Gosman with his splitter, he'll be good. I know he's getting older. And I think that Chris Bassett's going to have a really good season because he actually said word for it that last season was his worst season ever. And I think he's motivated to have even better season. I believe he's in a contract year. So contract year meaning he's going to get paid the money. It means he'll have a good season, hopefully. And
Yeah.
I think that the bullpen is definitely looking quite improved. I think that with the Uriel Rodriguez, Y-Rod, with him being moved to the bullpen likely, and Nick Sandlin and Jeff Hoffman, the former Blue Jay that was traded for Tulo. I always will remember that fun fact. But welcome back, Jeff, our new closer, and Chad Green in the bullpen, and probably Alec Manoa will be there once he gets back from his recovery. I think that the bullpen's looking quite good, but you never know. It's a very, very finicky thing to know how bullpens will be.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts about the bullpen?
It's a good bullpen, and we just need to back it up with hitting. Like, you can't have a really good bullpen day and then score no runs and end up losing 2-0, 3-0.
Yeah.
You name it.
And
Like, we gotta.
and hopefully that they'll be able to back it up with hits. And I hate to say this, but I think that Don Mattingly might have been part of the reason why their hitting was so bad, because his hitting philosophy was just get those little hits, just singles and doubles that will turn into runs. When their new hitting coach, his philosophy is do as much damage as possible. That's why they've been hitting so much home runs in spring training, because it's all about doing damage. And I love that philosophy, and I think that could definitely lead them towards a playoff run. Hopefully a deep one.
And the Jays are a team that can, at their best, inflict a lot of damage.
Definitely, and I hope that Anthony Santander will be a big piece in that. And I think they're definitely moving around that DH spot because you don't know who's going to fill that spot. I saw a lot of people projecting it'll be Will Wagner. No, it's not going to be a rookie as your DH. It'll probably be Santander on most days, maybe splitting it with George. But you never know. I think that if Varsho is back to start the season, which I think he definitely will, because it looks like his rotator cuff recovery is going pretty well. He's looking to be really good, the Platinum Glove Award winner. Really good defensively and a pretty good hitter. I think it might be a 30 home run season for him because his bat's looking really damn good. What are your thoughts on Dalton Varsho?
He's got a good bat, and we need the kind of hitting depth that he's going to provide. And we need to make damage on pitchers and defenses. We need to be getting hits, runs, and I think that's the kind of guy that we need to reinforce our hitting.
Definitely. I think especially his defense has been such an X factor, and it's why we're the defensive team of the year. And I know it's not a very good thing to be proud of, because you don't want to just be best at defense. You want to have a really good offense, which is why we just got to hope and pray that the bats stay alive and they stay healthy, that the training staff keeps the team healthy. Do you have any? What's your World Series prediction?
I'm going to say the Dodgers.
Prediction.
The Dodgers, surprise.
Yeah.
Against, I think it's going to be another Dodgers-Yankees. I just cannot see another team really getting to their level. I mean, we could see the Mets with, forget who it is that they just brought in. It's pretty big, and forget who it was. It was the guy. I think he went from the Yankees though. Juan Soto. That's the guy. Juan Soto.
Yeah, you're talking about Soto.
The hitting could be really good for New York, and they could go on a run, and we could see the same thing out of Philadelphia. They still have a really good roster, and even Atlanta, everyone in that NL East looks pretty good. And I could see Detroit maybe living up to their performance last year, but I just don't see. Yeah. I just don't see anybody getting onto the level of New York and LA again. I just really can't see it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough. I'm going to predict it's going to be Rockies versus Athletics. I think it's absolutely going to be Rockies versus Athletics. That's our tank bowl is going to be, guys. Did you guys fall for that?
If that was your World Series prediction, I would call you crazy right now.
Yeah, if anyone fell for that, I'll sell you my swampland in Florida.
That's some pretty good trolling.
Yeah. But my real prediction is obviously Dodgers, because I don't see anyone else beating the Dodgers. They're a juggernaut, and there definitely needs to be some more rules about competition. Maybe a harder salary cap. and an actual salary floor to make all these teams who don't spend enough make them spend, because these teams are spending under 100 mil per season, when there's teams like the Mets and Dodgers are spending over 300 million. There's no middle ground anymore, which is why you definitely need to have a salary floor implemented. And I think that that AL East team in the the American League team in the World Series, I think it's going to be a real fight. But I'll just say Yankees for the hell of it, because I have no clue. But we'll say Yankees Dodgers, and you were saying Dodgers versus Tigers, which I think that could be an interesting matchup. Tarek Skubal could be is a really good starting pitcher. I think they have some really good pieces. Should we wrap it up? You think we should wrap?
Yeah.
So guys, thank you guys so much for today. Noah, thank you so much for coming on. Always a great conversation.
It's my pleasure.
We covered a lot, from the political landscape to sports to the challenges facing the Jewish community, and we definitely have to do this again, Noah.
Absolutely.
And if to everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, leave us a comment if you want to see Noah back, or if you want to see someone else on the podcast. Let me know who I should ask onto the podcast for next time, and what topics should we discuss next time for all of y'all in the comments. And see y'all next time. Make sure to subscribe and like. Bye, guys.